So if you can commit to consistently producing content correctly, you're going to make a connection. So you're going to convert more clients and customers.
Over 1,700 new millionaires are created every single day in the US alone, and more than double that across the globe. They're people from all walks of life, most of them people just like you and I. So the big question is this: how are so many people who didn't inherit money or have any special advantages overcoming the odds and becoming millionaires? That's the question, and this show will give you the answers. My name is Jeff Lerner, and welcome to Millionaire Secrets. Welcome to another episode of Millionaire Secrets. This is Jeff Lerner, your host. Always thrilled to be with you and getting to have amazing conversations with brilliant and successful people and bring that to you. Today, we are joined by Krista Mashore, who I know I was previously on her podcast. We had an amazing conversation. I already know we're going to have a great conversation. I will say this about Krista. She is a elite, top, even sliver of 1% performer in two different industries that are saturated, wildly competitive, littered with entrepreneurs, but very few high producers. And she's dominant in both of them, multi-million dollar producer in both real estate and online coaching. Amazing talent, brilliant mind. Krista, welcome to Millionaire Secrets.
Thanks, Jeff. You make me sound too good.
I just call them like I see them. What can I say? I mean, seriously though, right? I mean, tell me I'm wrong. There's 3 million real estate agents in the United States, and about, I think you can count the ones that do 100 homes a year on like maybe your toes and fingers.
Yeah, it's a pretty competitive space. Obviously, it's really the barrier to entry is super easy. So you've got everybody and their brother getting their license.
Yeah, like literally everybody and their brother. And so if I was reading the numbers right, you were, how long were you in active real estate? Or was like your main thing you were doing was real estate transactions?
17 years before I went into coaching.
Okay. And you sold over 2,000 homes.
Yeah, around 2,200 homes.
Yeah. So people talk about like, oh, I want to sell 100 homes in a year. Like that's this massive achievement. And it is. Only you sold, 120, 130 homes a year for 17 years straight?
Yeah, give or take. Yeah, some years I sold 170 and 169 was my best year. And my first year in the business, I sold 69. So pretty much every year from my first year, I went up and up and up in numbers.
Yeah. No, I mean, that really is incredible. I know a number of real estate agents. I've done real estate investing, so I'm kind of familiar. And obviously I've bought a house as a, home liver. And so I'm reasonably familiar with the industry, and those are just massive numbers. And I want to talk about digital marketing. I want to talk about coaching. I want to talk about kind of the new school of entrepreneurship type of stuff that you do. But can we just dive in with the good old fashioned real estate part of your life? Because I think that's got to speak to who you are as much as what and how you do. Like, how did you dominate that industry so much?
I just tried to be as different as possible. I kind of got thrown into it. So I used to be a teacher. I taught third grade for 6 years. I have a master's degree in curriculum and instruction. So teaching was my life. Like I was going to be a principal. That's why I got my master's degree. And one of my little girls got sick when she was born. She contracted spinal meningitis and then had kidney failure and few strokes. And so we ended up in the hospital for a couple of weeks. And when we got out, well, first they told me that she probably wasn't going to make it. They said, multiple times they were like, call your priest. She's not going to make it. Well, she ended up making it, and she's great now. But they told me that I should expect that she was going to have severe learning disabilities, possibly be deaf and blind from the fevers and all that. And so I left my full-time teaching job to be a stay-at-home mom. And I decided I just kind of play real estate. I just get my real estate license and sell a couple homes a year, but primarily be a stay-at-home mom. And what happened was I ended up leaving my profession and getting into real estate to play real estate, and found out my husband at the time was having an affair. So within a few months, I had to drain bank accounts, a brand new house with an empty backyard, and 2 little girls, a single mom. So I had to like really dive into real estate. So that's how it started.
Wow. I guess that's making lemonade out of lemons, it sounds like.
I went through a hard time, but like a lot of people are going through hard times right now. And what I can say is when that happened to me, my family was ripped apart. I was very sad. And I'm a rather thin person. It's like I weigh about 125 pounds. I was under 100 pounds. I was just, my life was shattered, right? And so, but I'm so glad it was shattered because I didn't realize that just how unhappy I was and how dysfunctional it was. And I wouldn't be in the place that I'm at right now had I been, stayed where I'm at. And so those of you who are going through hard times right now, sometimes the hard things you go through end up like there's a rainbow at the end of them. Now I'm absolutely happily married, and we've adjusted so well, and I'm truly with my best friend, and things are great. Of course, there's been ups and downs in between there, but I'm thankful that it happened because I wouldn't be the person I am today had I stayed married, because I really was kind of on an abusive path and didn't really know it.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you sharing about that. I think that's such a powerful truth. I mean, I can briefly say for myself, when I got into, I would say, the successful phase of my entrepreneurial life. Prior to that, I was a very unsuccessful entrepreneur. I was getting divorced. I was heading for divorce, let's say. I was $500,000 in debt. The economy had just collapsed. It was 2008. I had brick and mortar restaurant franchise businesses that I lost both of them. So now I'm on the hook for $500,000. Wife is done with me. She's like, this guy's a loser. And I was like, well, I don't like you anyways. And it was just a whole bad deal. But I'm living at her parents' house because we lost our apartment, and like same thing. I mean, different thing, but same thing, just total rock bottom shit show of a life. And you hit bottom, and there's only two ways to go. You can either slither sideways and just kind of ooze along the bottom, or you can bounce, right?
Put your wrist, right? Or just get better.
Yeah, exactly. So your first year you sold 69 homes. Now this was, how long ago was this? 20 plus years?
Yeah, 20 years ago. Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's 20 years ago. So it's 2021. This was 2001. Clearly the real estate industry has changed a lot in the last 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started in real estate, like to show homes, I had to use the Thomas Brothers map, and I had to out the 20 houses and map quest it, like from the map, and like write down right here, go left here, X, Z, and it was just a nightmare. Like how many houses? 20? You want to see 10 houses? It took me like 4 hours just to map quest the house, and God forbid they ever ask me to veer in a different direction. I wouldn't know how to get there, So yeah, it was very different.
So what is it that you think you could speak to in terms of how you were able to, because even 69 homes your first year, I got to think that's a top 1, 2, at least 5% realtor, right? 1%,
pretty close, especially.
Yeah. So what is it that you could say about what you did then that would still be roughly relevant now, even though obviously the technology's changed?
Well, I was willing to put in the work and the time, right? I mean, I can't tell you how many times it'd be like Thanksgiving meal and somebody would call and say, hey, I want to see a house, and I'm cooking Thanksgiving dinner. Like, cool, I'll be there. I mean, I did whatever it took originally. I mean, I'd show houses on Christmas and Christmas Eve. And it's still amazing that people would allow me to actually show the house at that time, or they would even ask to show. But I mean, it really, I did, right? And I had my kids 50% of the time at that time. And so when I had my kids, I worked like crazy. And when I didn't have that, when I had them, I was with them. But when I didn't have them, I would just work. So I was willing to put the time in. I took a ton of education and got credentialed in, almost any certification I could get my hands on back then in real estate when I was first starting. I invested in my business. I mean, I was not afraid to spend money to make more, right? Back then I was putting my listings on television. I would, put CDs on the on my real estate signs and put like 20 pictures on the CDs, where most people were just doing like black and white flyers. I just made sure that I was doing things differently. And I really just took care of my clients, right? I mean, I love people, and I want people to like me, obviously. And I like doing right by people. So, I always say people before things, and the things will come. It was really about, whether they could afford it or whether it was a good investment. And more often than not, I would say, hey, this might not be the right house for you, and here's why. And people were like, do you even want to sell real estate? And I'm like, well, yeah, but I don't feel that, I can tell the market's crashing, and you work at Kmart, you're going to spend $500,000 on a house. I don't see how that's going to work.
Right.
And, that was really what was happening back then. But it just, it worked. I worked really hard and just had good intentions, and, all as well.
So your first year, 69 houses, how many of those were your listings on the seller side, and how many of those were house hunting for buyers?
Buyers at first. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the standard where you start is buyer representation, right? Which is like pretty brutal, thankless work.
It is. Yeah. It was pretty brutal. It's again, it's every weekend, every night. It's on their schedule, drop everything, because if you don't drop everything, they'll go to somebody else. Real estate's pretty, dog eat dog. I did open houses back then and door knocked back then and did all the things that, I would never do now, but I did them back then. So, and they worked. They didn't work as effectively as the things that I do now do, but they definitely did work. And, but most people are not willing to do the type of things that it takes. Like most people would not be willing to door knock and would not be willing to, have a listing of and hand out 100 flyers, every weekend, or just do those kind of things. They wouldn't be willing to hold an open house and then afterwards go bring a gift to the clients that showed up and say, hey, you won the raffle, and by the way, here's my marketing plan. Or, they wouldn't. Most people are not willing to do what it takes in a lot of careers and a lot of professions because they let the excuses come in the way.
So how did you, were you always like that, or was it the desperate situation you found yourself in that kind of lit a fire that maybe you didn't even know was there?
Well, kind of both. I didn't realize until I've gotten older just kind of how driven I am. But when I was younger, I found myself in some trouble. I ended up in juvenile hall, and then I ended up going to a group home in high school, and then spending my remainder 3 years of high school in a foster home. And during that time, I was a good kid, but I had some family problems. And so, but deep down, I was always a good kid,
Mm-hmm.
but I just found my way into some negativity. And so I remember at one point thinking, I can keep doing this juvenile hall thing, or I could be different, like I'm a good kid. Like, I don't want to be like this. So I just made the conscious decision to sort of be the best I could be in everything that I was doing. Right. And so I remember deciding to go to college, and I applied for a scholarship, and I got a scholarship from the juvenile hall that I was in. And the guy told me when he gave me the scholarship, and it wasn't very much, it was like $1,200 a year, but for me that was a lot because I was paying for my own college and everything. And he said, Krista, one day when you make it big, just remember to be a good person and to pay it forward. And I remember that. I remember him handing me the check, like literally it was a check back then, like a handwritten check, and him telling me pay it forward and to be a good person. And then the meaning of that check was like, there were times where I couldn't eat, and that check like put, food in my stomach. So I took it serious, and, I just kept trying to be the best person that I can be, and, had great friends and read great books and hired great mentors, and just continue to then and now, work on the person that I am.
Yeah. So it's interesting. You first did it in real estate. Now you're working on the digital marketing and coaching side of things. And, I had an interview on this show several months ago with actually my best friend from high school. We met in driver's ed, and he's my best friend. His name's Rob. And he's actually building one of the fastest, probably the fastest growing residential real estate team in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex right now. And he just transitioned into it from like 3 years ago. So he's gone from, zero to fastest growing team leader in the Metroplex in like 3 years. He was a personal trainer before that. And, he played college football and whatever, hardworking guy. But because we're really good friends, we talk a lot, and we always draw parallels between his industry and my industry, especially a few years ago when I was very much in the digital marketing square of business, right? Because they're both industries where anybody can do it, but virtually nobody does it. I mean, a lot of people try to do it, and you and I would both say, well, anybody could do it, but so many people try to do it. But then you look at the statistics, I mean, honestly, internet marketing is probably just as bad as real estate for like what percentage of people actually, let's say, make $1 million or transform their life or are able to quit their day job, like whatever the standard is. You've done it in 2 industries. I've done it in 2 industries because I used to be a professional musician, which, how many kids play piano lessons versus how many actually make a living, doing studio work and gigs. Like so I'm curious, what is it that you find as the parallel in real estate and now digital marketing that, I mean, I've been searching for this answer for over a decade. Why is it that anybody can, but so few will?
I think a lot of it has to be, it's your own belief system, right? I mean, I know that sounds so cliche, but if you read the book from Lewis Howes, School of Greatness, one of the things that he found that people had in common was the fact that they believed they could do it. And for some reason, I just always have believed that I can do it. Like I remember being at a real estate training about 5-6 years ago, and them asking us to put our goals down. And I wrote down $2 million. And everybody around me was like 100,000, 150, 75,000, 250. And I was like, oh man, I went to erase my goal of $2 million. And I was like, why am I going to erase it? I can do it. Like, I mean, I just got to work for it. Right. And I did. Like we've had, $2 million, more than $2 million years in real estate. We just brought my digital marketing company from 0 to 8 figures in 35 months, right? From no one knowing who I was. And and it was hard. Don't get me wrong. I made so many mistakes. There was a year of like, how am I even paying? How is this even happening? How am I paying these bills? Because it seemed like I was spending more than I was making. And I was, quite frankly, a lot of those months. And it's taken me quite a while to really kind of like be profitable, if it makes sense in that space, because I was trying to grow so fast. I just kept throwing things back into it. And I don't regret that at all because it's worked out well for us. But I mean, it's just believing in myself, and when I fall, like not wallowing in it, but just going, okay, that happened. Now how do we adjust? How do we adapt? How do we move over it or under it or through it? How do we just keep pushing forward? And one more thing I will say is just starting, right? Like I start way too fast, meaning most people will think like, we made this decision, why are you already starting? It's like, well, I mean, because I need to start. And so a lot of people are just getting ready and they're aiming, but they never fire, where I fire first and then I get ready and then I aim. And so along the way, I'm making mistakes, I'm adjusting, I'm adapting, but that happens when you wait and you plan and you try to make it be perfect. So many people are trying to be perfect and make everything be so ready. And when they actually launch or do something, they still make all the mistakes that I made when I just started. I think that's been... Right.
Yeah, I mean...
Honestly, Jeff, it's a hard one. Like, I don't know.
I mean, here's the thing. I think you're like my 105th or 100. I know we passed 100 interviews a couple of weeks ago. So let's say you're number 105, 110, somewhere in there. I basically ask everyone the same question because, that's who I have on the show are people that are outlier successes in their fields. And it's always basically the same answer. So I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer, but if there's a right answer, I think you got it right. It's not what you do, it's who you are and how you do. There's these intangible qualities, massive action taking, the ability to make a decision and go hard into that decision without equivocation, without second guessing. You're probably in some ways a really intense person that even sometimes makes people uncomfortable because they're like, why is this lady so on all the time? Can't she just chill? And like, I'm right there with you. And the reason I say this isn't because it's good or bad. You are who you are. I am who I am. The people I have on the show are who they are. But based on what people say they want out of life, then you could argue that this is good. It is good to be this way. It is good to be intense. It is good to be extreme. It is good to be driven. It's good to be fast moving. It's good to be constantly moving and shifting and adapting and not getting stuck in analysis paralysis. It's good to be exactly like Krista if you want success, abundance, money, freedom, flexibility, lifestyle options, early retirement, right? Probably all the stuff that, well, you probably could have early retirement, but you probably won't take advantage of it. But I'm just saying, like if people are listening to a show called Millionaire Secrets, Krista's telling you what to do.
Well, and not only that, I think, like I'm a huge component on mindset. I mean, like I my mindset like crazy. I read books constantly. I'm listening to audiobooks. I have my own affirmations. I visualize my day. I write out, how I want every aspect of my life to look, all the cliche things that everyone says. But if you look at all the research and the science behind doing all those things that people think are so cliche and sound so like minuscule, it's huge. I mean, because your reticular activating system doesn't know where it wants to go unless you're telling it to. So I do all those corny things that people will say corny. And like my students will say, I hear this more than anything with my coaching students, like, Krista, not only have you changed my business, but you've changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, I didn't change your life. You did. You are the person that changed your life. I was just a catalyst to help get you to get there. But the reason being is because in my trainings, where there's so much mindset. And I think so many people, honestly, Jeff, are just, they're broken. They have a hard time. They get so stuck. Like, if I have to hear one more time how horrible 2020 was, like, it's been one of the best years of my business, and with real estate agents and now local professionals that don't even really have the ability to invest in their business, but they are, because they know. And also a new opportunity has arisen, like, right, COVID basically, I had two people in my company, very, very high up, my marketing manager, director, and my human resources director, go into business together to open a business in a competing business that directly correlates and competes with me. Okay, it knocked me on my butt for about 2 days. And I was like, oh my God, and I was just like, okay, I went full speed on how do we fix this? Like, how do we make this better? How do we, and it's been 6 months of just absolute, like, constantly fixing things that were broken and changing and modifying and adapting. And I'll tell you what, looking back now, again, it was the best thing that could have ever happened, because I didn't realize all the things that weren't working correctly, because I was just trusting in the process and not taking extreme ownership of my company. Right. But now it's like the company is in alignment. We're working together as a team. We fixed all the back end stuff. We're way, way, way more profitable now. Like, I was looking back, I'm like, there was months where I'd spend $470,000 in expenses. And I'm, now we're down to under 200, right? Yeah. All just these things that I thought was so bad, kind of getting on a tangent. But I just think that when you're in business, number one, you've got to believe in yourself. You have to know that stuff is going to happen. Things are going to come in your way, and you have to just be willing to adapt, and you have to be willing to invest and to take risks. How many people do you know that they want all of this stuff? They want to have the freedom and the flexibility and the time, but they're not, number one, willing to invest in themselves and the education and the skill to learn how. And number two, they're not willing to invest the time that it takes to get there. Right. Mm-hmm. It's like they want these things, but they're not willing. It's like, I know about hiring Russell Brunson. He helped me go from 0 to, 7 figures in 25 months, 26, 23 months. What was it? And now, to go from 0 to 8 figures in 35 months. It's from investing in his coaching and mentorship, and as well as, and upwards of around $300,000 in coaching and training over the past 3 years. When I just actually wrote it down, I did this thing in the inner circle, and I said, hey, we hit 10 figures, and here's all of you that I gave money to. I started listing out like 25 grand, 60 grand, 30 grand. I'm not kidding. It was close to 300 grand. And I'm like, and I know I forgot some of you. I was able to get to where I'm at because I took the investment. Now that money came out of my pocket, meaning I didn't see the profits yet of my business, but I just kept investing back in me. Does that make sense? And
if I heard your story right, you didn't really see the profits from that for like almost 2 years.
Yes, honestly, we have $1 million in the bank right now with Community Market Leader. So, and it's a little bit more, but it's taken us, 3 years to get there. Yes, we've made 10 million. Now we've got $1 million in the bank. And yes, we've bought things along the way, but now we're really starting to see the profits. And what I was getting to is that opportunities arise and you have to be willing to take them. Okay. And I'll give you an example. So I am with eXp Realty now. So I want to talk to you about your friend too. Your friend Rob, you said before we were done. So I went to eXp Realty because I'm coaching now 99% of the time. So this year I'll sell, I think 93 houses and in real estate, working 5 hours a month in real estate. So I work 5 hours a month. I record videos. I have a process and a team now that runs that for me. Very, very profitable company because I'm coaching. Well, I got nervous about being my own broker because I was afraid that I'm my own broker right now. I'm not involved as much. I don't want to get sued. So I'm going to go to eXp Realty and they're going to be my broker. And I'm going to be an agent, Homes by Krista, brokered by eXp Realty.
Right.
Well, when this whole thing happened with my business partners, basically, it wasn't partners, but my two main head people. And I was like, man, this could all get taken away from me very quickly. And so an opportunity arose with eXp for me to build an organization within an organization. And so I took the opportunity, meaning somebody was like, listen, I know you went to eXp because you just wanted to, not have any liability, but have you really looked into the model? And I was like, no, I haven't. And they're like, if you just looked into the model, Krista, we think that you'd be shocked. So I was like, okay, I gave myself a month. I dove in, understood the model, and I was like, oh my goodness, I can help so many more people now. I could now help realtors across the country, bringing them into my eXp organization, coach them and train them in a different capacity and still be able to make a massive impact. And by doing that, like in a 4-month period, we brought in $1 million of projected income from the coaching because it's a whole different avenue. But my point is that had I just stayed stuck when that thing happened to me, and just been upset and hurt. And I wasn't through all the stages of grief, right? I was like angry and hurt and all those things. But then it was like, okay, I allowed my mind to think about ways to protect itself and to enhance and to move forward. And because of that thing that happened, it made me develop this whole new business, right? Now I've got a third one over here that I never would have even thought about doing because I thought so content, right?
Yeah.
So just being willing to take some risks and to, work a little bit harder. Yes, it's been a huge investment. I mean, I've invested time, investment of energy on that new business, but I'm also able to help a lot more people. Like it works. So when the crap hits the fan, look for the lemonade, right? Like think about how can I get out of this? How can I work this? Don't sit there and wallow and be pissed and be mad and sad and blah, 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 because you're going to keep getting more of that.
Yeah, somebody in an interview yesterday said everybody, and I've heard this before, they said everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. You got to make the investment if you want to get the payoff, right?
And if you hear, well, once I have the money, then I'll make the investment. It's completely the opposite. You need, think about how long it takes a doctor. And I love this because of your platform. You're all about learning and coaching and all this. Think about how long it takes a doctor to go to school. The amount of money they spend in school, the amount of time and the years and years to become a doctor. And they make that investment to have this financial ending. Why is it that so many people, entrepreneurs, business owners, they don't feel that they need to put in the same and not even close to the same? I mean, you and I both know that there's trainings out there for, hundreds of thousands of dollars less than doctors pay that will make more money than a doctor will make, but most people are not willing to go make the dive, like you said. They're not willing to dive.
Yeah, I mean, it's because I have a pretty good theory on that. It's because people inherently are so much more willing to look outside themselves for security than inside themselves for security. Because the average, we have a part of a presentation in my company, Entra, where we call it the $190,000 difference. And that's the average cost of a Harvard education is $190,000. And it's like, what do people actually get for $190,000? Because the reality is now in the world we live in, you don't even get any information that you couldn't get for free on the internet. There's literally not one thing you can learn at Harvard that they have some like proprietary claim to. It's all out there for free. So you're not paying for access to information. You're paying for curation. You're paying for an organized pathway. You're paying for relationships, networking, alumni. You're paying for, all this stuff, right? But all that stuff you're paying for is meant to come with it this external value that gets applied to you once you have the degree, or I call it the receipt, that people think, oh, well, now externally, they're going to provide me with more security, when the reality is statistically 12 years after graduating from Harvard, the average person is making $84,000 a year.
Yeah. The average graduate from Cornell, Harvard, all of them is between $56,000 and $65,000 a year to start.
Yeah. And 12 years later, they're still not making six figures.
So they're only making, 12 years later, the numbers are 85 grand. That is pathetic.
That's from Harvard. That's from the number one. Harvard and Stanford are the top two schools in terms of income. And it's, still not, the average graduate doesn't make six figures in their first 20 years.
Wow.
are they doing?
I totally agree. I hate to admit this, but if my kids came to me now and said, Mom, we want to quit school and we want to go take this, this training on ClickFunnels and I want to learn how to become this number one, I'd be like, if you're committed to it and you're dedicated, you're going to actually do it. And yes, I'll support you,
Yeah. And to your point about turning lemons into lemonade or, bouncing from chaos, a lot of people, I'll share with you briefly, like, I started Entre, my education company right now, to basically say, hey, I've been an entrepreneur for over 20 years. I've been a reasonably successful entrepreneur who is at least turning a profit for like a decade. And it's given me this quality of life. And let me tell the world how I did it and, how they can do it too. That was kind of the premise, right? But what a lot of people don't know is I started Entre the way I started it, as aggressively as I started it, to where we've scaled, from 0 to a lot in like 2 years. Because I got screwed on a deal. I got ripped off for almost $1 million. I sold my agency and I was supposed to get paid out over almost 2 years. And halfway through the payout, that company that was paying me went out of business. And I was supposed to be making like 70, 80 grand a month for like another year without having to lift a finger. And all of a sudden, it was gone. And I had lost my asset because I sold the asset. So I was like, well, and I was pissed. I was like, well, I could sue them, throw good money after bad. I could, but I don't have time. Like I didn't have time. The only thing I had time to do was get my ass into massive high gear. And 2 years later, we have probably the fastest growing private education company in the world. Like literally, it's just what you do when the going gets tough, the tough get going. You do it. I do it. Every single guest I've ever had on the show has done it. They all have the same story. And if we can accomplish anything here, it's that at least one listener who's just went through 2020, same as the rest of us, and is having a really shitty Christmas, goes, yep, that's the move. 2021's my year. I'm making my move. Let's crush it. And they go.
Yeah. And just do it. Know you can do it and just keep on going and don't stop. It's funny. The same thing with what happened to me. And they're like, well, you should sue them. And I'm like, hey, for what? Like, what am I going to sue them for? I don't want to have any energy or negativity put on that. I want to move forward. Like the rear view mirror is behind you for a reason. Like I need to just keep going, and it's been good. I've been aligning myself with great people and I couldn't complain.
Yeah. That's a good metaphor. Imagine trying to drive down the road by staring in the rearview mirror. Like how would that work? Okay. So 3-4 years ago, by the way, don't think we missed the fact that you're still going to sell 70 houses this year, even though you're working 5 hours a month. Like that just, I think deserves casual mention. But you switched into digital marketing and coaching. Did you say three years ago, 35 months?
3 years ago in November. So, is when I did the switch, and I remember making the change, and my husband and my parents were like, Krista, normal people do not leave a career that they're making over $1 million a year at to go to a new career. Like, not a smart idea. And my husband's like, are you sure, babe? Like, because I'm the kind of the breadwinner. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to do it. So it was a rough road too, because obviously my real estate business kind of changed a little bit because my focus was on coaching, but it ended up being one of the greatest things because I love coaching and training. And I had mastered real estate and I had mastered digital marketing in real estate. Now I wanted to help other people. So my coaching company originally was just helping realtors across the country learn how to utilize social media, digital marketing, and put a real estate spin on it, so that they could kind of be the go-to authority and expert in their community by getting like massive amounts of eyes on them. And now we're teaching local professionals how to do the same. So it's been awesome. I love it.
You may have just answered the question, but I'd love for you to dig a little deeper. What drove that change 3 years ago?
I was reading the book Think and Grow Rich from Napoleon Hill, and it says in there, when you get this little thing and you get this, someone keeps telling you to do something, like maybe eventually you should think about doing it. And I kept hearing from people, you should be a coach. You should, oh my God, you're so inspiring. You should, and I just all the time. Finally, I was like, I love coaching. I love teaching. And I miss it so much. And I was burnt out on real estate, quite frankly. And so I was like, you know what? I have something that's different. I know I can help a lot of people. They need this because realtors are so old school in what they're doing. They don't even know about digital marketing, and if they do, they don't know it correctly. And I thought I could really make a huge impact. So I just went for it, and here I am.
Well, I have my copy of Think and Grow Rich right here. So I literally, when I'm bored, not bored, I'm never really bored. Somebody told me if you're bored, you're boring. And I'm like, yeah, actually that's true. So I'm never really bored, but when I have a few minutes to kill, I look in, it's my favorite thing to just pick up and read. But one thing that occurs to me in what you just said is everybody else looking at the situation saw, oh my gosh, she's going to walk away from a multi-million-dollar business. And by the way, you've sold over $1 billion in real estate, right?
I think it's like 10 billion. And it's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not going to like probe you for details of your financial situation, but for anybody that's trying to do the math, like realtor makes, even after splits, broker splits and everything, and just on either side of the transaction, you make 1% to 2% of the deal.
Yeah. I mean, I was making about 1.8 million, like a year, bringing home about 1.5 million.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, we don't have any debt. We own multiple homes. Like I've done well. I mean, imagine my average rate is, right now it's around 750,000. Back then, probably closer to 500,000 a year, and we charged a 3% commission. So, you know, we did good, and I didn't have a huge staff. So most people, when they talk about, oh, I sold 100 homes, it's with a team of like 20.
Right.
Me, a transaction coordinator, and a marketing assistant. Right, like that was all the 17 years up until the last year and a half before I left to go into coaching. It was just me. There was no other licensed agents. Doing that kind of numbers, but because of the systems and all that in place, right? So it was a good living. It was a really good living, right? But it wasn't something that, I mean, I love real estate, but I mean, I was on vacation, Jeff, and you know, with getting up at 3 a.m, working for 6 hours, when you're selling 150, 160 homes, there's a lot involved when it's just you and, you know, you don't have other agents helping. I was never off. I was constantly on vacation. My kids were like, mom, get off the phone. Mom, listen to me. And one day I was like, I'm done. Like, I just cannot keep doing this anymore. It's been 17 years straight of just like pedal to the metal. You know, I'm not one that tends to stop. And I was just like tired of not ever being off.
Right.
So I got home and I called my brother and I said, listen, I need to teach you to be me pretty much. And, you know, I know we had like a 6-month plan, but I need it to happen like next week. So I need you here on Monday. So that's how it all happened.
Well, the reason I mentioned it is because, and I've been through this too, and this may sound cocky. It's not cocky. It's just, I think it's just properly informed and properly perceiving human value. To most people, you walked away from a multi-million-dollar business to gamble on a new business. I wouldn't have seen it that way because being a residential real estate agent isn't a multi-million-dollar business for most people. It's actually a garbage business for most people. It was a multi-million-dollar business for you. That's not because of the residential real estate industry. That's because of you. So if you're the X factor to make what for millions of people is like a crappy part-time business that they maybe sell one house a year, and you sold 150 a year, and you're the X factor there, why would it be a gamble to take that X factor and apply it to another industry that frankly has equally low statistical outcomes, which is digital marketing and coaching, but who cares? Because you're the X factor and you're going to be just as good over here as you were over there, right?
Yeah, but it doesn't happen obviously overnight. I mean,
well, but that's part of being the X factor is not being, impatient.
Yeah. But like we had months in the coaching, like within a 2-year time frame, like my best month in real estate, I made like $336,000 in a month. That was my best month. And we had a $670,000 months in coaching, and it took me 15 years to get to that point in real estate, right, which we did it in like 2. But again, the profits at first weren't
Right.
as much because I just kept putting it back in. I'm like, put it back in. Like my goal was to just grow it as fast as I could.
I appreciate, by the way, I actually really love how transparent you are about the economics of your business. Some people like keep that close to the vest, like it's when you're an entrepreneur, I don't feel like it's bragging. It's literally, it's data.
Yeah.
And data is only useful if it's visible.
Some people don't talk about this. Oh, I made $1 million, but it took me $1.1 million to make $1 million. Right? Like they don't talk about that at first. And we could have, I could have been more profitable, but I really wanted to fast track. And so I was like hiring the best of the best to help me grow more quickly.
Yeah.
And I don't regret it because now it's really done well from us. Gosh, just this past month, we've invested probably, I think around 60 grand just in coaching and support to help us get better. And that could have been profit, but it's like, I just know that in order for me to continue to grow and get where I want to be, I want to be able to have I want to enhance it by hiring people that know more in each specific subject than I do, so.
Yeah, I was saying we had an event last week, a company-wide event for Entra. And I said on the event, I was like 2020, like we've scaled like from January to now, we've grown over 2000% month over month. But I was saying on the event, I was like, I feel like I've been building a mansion this year. Because if you think about building a mansion, you got like the tile guy who's like, yeah, I just ordered the marble from Italy and I need $40,000 to get the tile. And you're like, okay, here's a check for $40,000. And then the electrician comes in and is like, oh, I'm wiring the home theater, but it's going to be 32 grand. I need a check. And you're like, okay, here's 32 grand. I literally feel that's how I felt all year. As I'm 10 grand over here, 15 grand over here, 20 grand over here, just to get better information.
And no one even realizes too, like how much, like, it's like, it adds up, it's one thing I will tell you though, that I realized this year after what happened was I'm more careful where I spend my money. I'm much more careful who I trust.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with all these gurus out there right now that are, so they're experts. I make sure that they really, really are an expert, because what I found was that there's a lot of people that are claiming to be experts and geniuses in their certain profession, but they haven't really done what they're claiming. So that's one thing I'm careful with now, is like just really being careful as far as who I hire, making sure that they've actually done the walk the talk,
Yeah. So if we were going to try to like boil all the water out of this pan and say, okay, attention world, here is the formula for getting rich online. Let's just be tacky and call it that. I would say this: get really, really good at something and just get really, really personally excellent in general. Like develop yourself to a place where you're confident and you can, humbly but accurately say, I am excellent. I am excellent at my craft. You are excellent at your craft. I'm really excellent at certain things, right? Like play a song on the radio. I can sit down and play it by ear. That's just something I'm good at, but like do the work. It could take 10 years. It could take 20 years. Do the work. There's no shortcutting the work. But once you've done the work to be a certain way, the internet is like steroids.
Yeah.
And so you have built an 8-figure business in 3 years. I've built an 8-figure business in, roughly the same amount of time online, whereas it took you 15 years offline in real estate, because the internet has certain unique qualities. And that's why I evangelize it, that like, it doesn't mean that you don't have to be good. It's not like a substitute for skill or quality, but assuming you have skill or quality, the internet will light a fire in your life that nothing else can.
So so people ask me, well, what's your key to success? And I'll say this in both businesses: it's creating content and properly distributing it, right? Mm-hmm. So I call it the 7 C's. You got to commit to consistently producing content correctly meaning it's the right content to the right people, and it's actually being seen. It's correctly being distributed, right? So if you can commit to consistently producing content correctly, you're going to make a connection. So you're going to convert more clients and customers. Okay. So the internet is so great, but if nobody is seeing your stuff, it doesn't make a difference. The key is producing quality content, right? Good information that's going to help and serve your audience, making sure that they're getting the right information at the right phase, cold, warm, or hot, depending on where they're at, and making sure it's actually being seen. And then once it's being seen, to continuing to being seen in front of those people, solving their problems, right? Because you cannot be a solution unless you're solving a problem. You can't be a solution unless you're being seen, right? Everyone wants to be known, but in order for you to be known, you have to be seen, you have to be heard, you have to be solving a problem. So I think one of the biggest mistakes that most people make is that they're producing content, but no one's seeing it because they're not investing in the skills and the strategies to make sure the content's actually getting proper exposure.
Yeah. So that's what, I mean, in the 17 years that you were in real estate, 2001, I mean, by when did social media become really prominent in your business in real estate?
About 8 years ago. So about 8 years ago, I started creating video content, and just like no one was doing it, right?
Yeah.
Like video content. As soon as Facebook came out, I learned right away how to run Facebook ads. And so like I haven't done an open house or 10 years at least. Open houses, cold calling, door knocking. It's 100%, you know, I'm online. My videos are targeting people. I'm like, I call them the community market leader, where, you know, anything about real estate or community or the area, you know, best hot spots in town, best dog parks, new, you know, interviewing other professionals, interviewing local businesses. I'm there, right?
Right.
That's where I spend my time. And then I take all that information, that content, I properly distribute it and target people and retarget people, so that I'm just constantly being seen as the go-to top of mind expert. That's how I was able to work 5 hours a month and, you know, sell just under 100 homes this year.
So, I mean, again, mostly from talking to my friend, it apparently, even given the very obvious truth of what you just said, the vast majority of realtors still have not leaned into video-based content digitally distributed.
Like 1%, not even that. And it's not just realtors. It's any local profession, an attorney, a doctor, an insurance agent, a mortgage broker. This strategy works for any type of profession or business, quite frankly, locally. Like if I asked you, Jeff, name the number one attorney or insurance agent or dentist or doctor or real estate agent.
Yeah, it's the guy that's either all over Facebook or runs the most TV commercials.
Yeah, or on the billboard, right?
Or the billboard, yeah.
Or you just know that person because you know them. But in most cases, you can't say, yeah, I know what that dentist is. I know who that insurance agent is. They're just, you can't think of them because no one's doing it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and I notice these things because I'm a digital marketer, but like, yeah, to most people. I mean, I remember sitting down with an attorney. Before I sold my agency, we launched an inbound marketing division, and I showed him on paper. I think it was a SpyFu report. I don't know if you're familiar with that, where you can actually see everybody's Google ads and figure out their spend and everything. I showed him the Google ad spend with a SpyFu report on the number one personal injury attorney in all of Utah.
I don't know what that is. What's that called?
It's called SpyFu. Oh yeah, this is a great hack for everyone. At least a couple of years ago when I used it for agency, SPYFU. No, I didn't mean to say FU, but SPYFU. SpyFu. And I showed him, I'm like, the guy's, you wonder why the guy's so all over the place. He spends $400,000 a month on Google ads.
Wow.
And the guy's like, we can't spend $400,000 a month. I'm like, how much did you guys bill this year? And he was like, we billed like $2 million or something. I'm like, stop everything, fire all the secretaries, quit printing, go digital, save on ink cartridges, like whatever you got to do. Give me like $100,000 a month. And I promise 6 months from now, it'll return $1 million. And then 400 will be no laughing matter, or will just be a laughable thing. And he's like, and by the way, I was charging him my proposal was charging him $8,000 a month to do this. Total shutdown. They basically laughed me out of the room. And I'm like, you can lead a horse to water, Yeah,
it's so true. So true. Oh, I found Facebook advertising to be like both my companies, right? The number one way to just be top of mind, right? And you can be a brand new in any industry and beat out top performers within a year of doing this, as long as you stick with it and you're consistent with it, right? Because people, what perception is reality. So if somebody sees you all the time, all over Facebook or Instagram, whatever it might be, giving information, giving content, market updates, talking about like, hey, this is, it's tax time. Here's the top 10 things you need to do to make more money on your taxes this year, right? Or save money on your taxes this year. You're going to, that person is all of a sudden an expert, right? Yeah. And so it just works fabulously. So if anyone ever asks me, Krista, what would be your advice on how I can really start enhancing my business and grow and, actually truly be able to have more time and freedom? I'd say start producing more content, correctly distributing it through ads, and make sure you're solving problems.
So last question, and then I know we both have to go. I have another appointment. You have to finish your Christmas shopping. So last question, and then I want you to tell the world how they can come find you and hear more of your greatness. So you mentioned creating, properly distributing, you mentioned consistency. How, in your estimation, for the average, let's confine the question to local markets. Not like for me, I decided I'm crazy. I decided I'm going to go compete with Robert Kiyosaki and Tony Robbins and Russell Brunson. And that's a whole different question, right? Global competition. But for a local real estate agent, plumber, electrician, auto mechanic, that type of person, how long do you think they need to consistently produce a fairly abundant amount of content before they start to win that top of mind game in their market?
So if they can give it about 6 months, and honestly, it probably isn't even that long, but like we've seen some people do it in 3. We've seen some people take 9, right? But we've seen people, I mean, like 600x their business.
Right.
People that have never even sold a house before, sold 2 homes, sold 88 homes in 20 months, or agents that have gone from already big producers selling 103 houses go to just under 300 in a time frame. So it takes about 6 months, and you want to have around $300 to $500 a month budget, right? But I will tell you that if you can get that budget up to closer to $1,000 a month in marketing, like the momentum and the speed will just happen so much more quickly, because the amount of money, that's a lot of money, a lot of impressions, a lot of watch time, right? Like imagine creating a video where you can get 400, 600 hours of watch time on every video. You can get videos that people are watching, 7,000 people are watching the entire video through play, right?
Yeah.
Imagine doing this every single week, multiple times, like top of mind. There's a reason why Nike and McDonald's markets during the Super Bowl on the television when it's like 8 billion times more expensive, because they know it works.
Yeah.
So you have, like, for minuscule pennies to the dollar, you can do what these Fortune 500 companies are doing on a local level to dominate very, very quickly. But again, it takes consistency and time and making sure that you're properly getting the stuff out there.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how efficient local digital marketing is.
Oh, crazy. I'm like you. I'm going across the world, right? I'm going across the United States. So for me to spend $1, like someone said, somebody got some bad advice. Like, yeah, we've been told to run these videos and spend $1,000 a month. And I'm like, across the United States, I'm like, how about no one is seeing you? Like nothing at all. A $500 on a local level within a 15-mile radius is like massive amounts of impressions and visual eyes on you.
Amen. Yeah, I did videos for a year before I launched Entre. I didn't sell anything for a year. And so, but I pixeled all my videos on Facebook. So at the end of, it was about 11 months, at the end of 11. And frankly, I would have taken more time, except that company screwed me. And I was like, oh crap, I need to start selling something. By the time I started running an ad to sell a course, I had 2 million people in my retargetable, audiences on Facebook that had played my videos. And I was able to accomplish that for about 25 grand. And again, at the time I was US, Canada, United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand. So it was a really broad net that I cast. But for 25 grand, I had 2 million people I could advertise to that knew who I was. How much would it cost to get 2 million people on an email list? Like $10 million?
Totally. And especially eyes that are actually watching you and care and know, like, and trust you. Yes.
Yeah. An email, by the way, if you're lucky, you get 20% delivery or maybe, 10% open rates. Videos, if they saw you, Yeah, anyway. Well, listen, Krista, I want to let you get to your Christmas shopping. How can the world come get more of your awesomeness? Where should they go find you?
So I just finished writing a book called The Ultimate Lead Gen Playbook. It's a bestseller on Amazon under entrepreneurship and small business. It's called The Ultimate Lead Gen Playbook. Just go to getkristasbook.com. So getkristasbook.com, and you'll be able to get a free copy. Just pay for shipping, and and there's also audio on there and everything else.
Cool. Yeah, we'll put that link in the description wherever this appears. And then as far as your coaching, you mentioned you've expanded beyond just real estate, and you're basically working with any local small business, right?
Yeah, any local small business or professional. If you're a doctor, attorney, insurance agent, mortgage broker, realtor, we help you. Dentist, whatever it might be, we'll help you just fast track to become go-to authority in your profession.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I will say that I have, and I don't say this about every guest because it's not always true, but in Krista's case, I have done my homework. I was on her show. It's been a couple months and I've kind of, cyber stalked her a little bit, and she's very, very good. So I'm throwing my name behind and saying, yeah, go Krista. She's got great services, great products, and I'm sure she has a great book. Thank you so much for being a guest on Millionaire Secrets. This has been awesome.
Oh, thanks for having me. I had fun with you on my podcast too. So thank you, Jeff. You're amazing. I love what you do.
Thank you. It's mutual. And to everyone else out there who's watching or listening, you are the absolute best part of this show. You are why I get up every morning very early, I will add, and work very hard because I love you and I want to serve you. And you make my life just a joy every day. Thank you so much. We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for watching Millionaire Secrets. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and leave us a comment below. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you know whenever we release a new episode. Also, if you want to learn the fastest way to become a millionaire in the new economy, click the link in the description below to claim your free copy of my book, The Millionaire Shortcut. And don't forget, Millionaire Secrets is available on all the major podcast platforms as well. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you can listen on the go. Thanks for watching.